Well, I don't know how much time I have left, but I will try to maximize what I have. Coming here, I think it was a very rewarding experience. I wish I could have the moment of healing and sharing like what you have had since yesterday. So let me disclose a little bit about myself. Of course, it is quite obvious to you I'm blind, and I've been blind since birth. So there's nothing to hide about my blindness, so I don't have to disclose about it. Everybody knows about it. But disability has been imposed upon me by the society and its expectation. So I'm blind by birth and disabled by the society. Is it quite familiar to you? I hope it is. Well, many of you call me doctor. I've never enrolled in any PhD program, so it was just an honorary doctor, so I don't mind being called just Monthian. It's my parents' given name to me. The highest formal education I got was a master. So it's people call me senator. Of course, you could be a lifelong senator if you once served in the Senate. Unfortunately, I'm still in the Senate. Well, I'm in my 7th year of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and will complete my 2nd term next year. So from now, I have to switch your mind into CRPD mode, and I hope it is not too harsh. So forgive me if what I'm going to say is not what you want to hear. What is the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities? Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is one of 9 international human rights treaties adopted by the UN General Assembly. It is the first human rights treaty of the 21st century. It's the first people-driven treaty which enjoy full and effective participation by those who claim their rights, from grassroots to global level. Interestingly enough, some via the internet throughout the process of its drafting and negotiation. I was fortunate at that time to be appointed as representative from the Thai government to draft and negotiate the convention. As a matter of fact, the first draft of the convention was born in Asia. It was called Bangkok Draft. It is the fastest growing international human rights treaty. After only 10 years, we have now 181 states parties to the convention, including Malaysia, by the way. So big hands to Malaysia. Most of all, it is the first disability-specific international human rights treaty to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities. And of course, including those with psychosocial disabilities and those who are friends here who have mental health conditions. And to respect their inherent dignity. As the first international comprehensive international instruments of persons with disabilities, the first UN human rights of the 21st century, the CRPD completely changes the whole concept of disability. Many of you think about disability as more or less deficiency, incomplete, defect, and something that needs to be repaired or fixed or corrected, sometimes involuntarily or forced. These concepts perceive persons with disabilities or disability, mainly persons with disabilities, as object of charity, welfare, and something you might be familiar, and medical interventions. Shifting from object to subject of rights in all aspects with full recognition of rights and responsibilities on an equal basis with others. Is that familiar to you? If yes, give me big hands. If not, give yourself big hands that you are entering a new momentum. I heard several of you talking about medical model and social model. Disability under this convention is transformed from medical or charity-based model into social, and now there's an emerging recognition of disability from the human rights model. So let me read you the first article of this treaty. The purpose of the present convention is to promote, protect, and ensure full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities, and promote respect for their inherent dignity. Persons with disabilities include, now, this is more important, persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in the society on an equal basis with others. Now, the concept of disability from a human rights perspective looks at who owns the rights and who holds the rights, who has the power to decide what is right or wrong, who has the power to make decisions, even when other people may not agree. This convention sets a new tone of how human beings, so-called persons with disabilities, are to shape our lives, decide. Let me independence, equality and non-discrimination, full and effective participation, accessibility, equality between men and women, evolving capacity of children. So these are the principles that govern the whole
Convention. Now, some of you are a bit puzzled when I say it is a legal instrument, a human rights instrument. Is it different from the Universal Declaration on Human Rights? It is yes or no. From the principle point of view, it is based on the same principle as the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. But the declaration is just a declaration. It's a statement. It calls for moral obligation. It is not enforced. It doesn't condemn those who may not be able to fulfill. However, when it is a treaty, or this term we call convention, it has to be signed. Malaysia signed. It has to be ratified. This term is used for a legal document. And once ratification, and since this is an international law, the state parties are obliged to follow the principle and the mandate of this law. So Malaysia has to be obliged. And by ratification, the state party is obliged to make this principle and mandate part of your domestic law. In some legal system, once ratified, the whole convention becomes domestic law automatically. But in our tradition, I believe Malaysia is the same as Thailand, we have to implement this law through our own domestic law. So many countries develop their own legal system based on the principles and the mandates of the convention. So the state parties are obliged to either promulgate, meaning to start a new law completely, to make correction or to revise or to amend existing legislation policy so as to be in line with the principles and the mandates of the convention. Since the CRPD is both the, some say, development tool, it talks very highly about what we expect to see. But it is also a human rights law, so it has a mandate, what you have to complete, what you have to ensure, what you have to guarantee. So it is a twin track instrument, a twin track approach.
In some sense, it covers economic, social, and cultural aspects of human rights, which requires gradual or progressive realization or gradual implementation. I would rather say gradual implementation. It has to be realized now, but it could be gradually, progressively implemented because it depends on the economic, social, cultural context of each country. It also has the component covering the civil and political rights, which calls for immediate recognition and immediate implementation, such as equality and non-discrimination. That's in Article 5 of the Convention. The Convention then goes from state obligation, meaning the state is obliged to promulgate, to repeal, to amend, to revise its law, which is contradicting to the convention, so as to make it in harmony, in line with the convention. Now, is the mental acts of Malaysia in conflict with the mandate and principle of the CRPD? Yes or no? Or you don't know? Perhaps you have to go back and review your law. Does it allow for forced institutionalization, forced medication, forced abortion, forced sterilization? Sterilization, sorry. Does it allow for that? If it allows, it's in contradiction. It is in contrast with the mandate and the principle of the convention. So something needs to be done so that Malaysia can share its success with the whole world. And let me tell you later how you can do that. And then we have all these specific rights. The right to equality and non-discrimination, women, children, awareness raising, accessibility, the right to life. A very interesting article, I think, that is very much connected, and I think many of you with mental health condition or psychosocial disability, is the linkage between non-discrimination, equality, a so-called Article 12 on equal recognition before the law. And such guarantee of equal recognition before the law is really transformed into whether you have the same legal capacity with those without mental illness or without mental health condition. Do somebody make a decision for you? Does your health act, mental health act, allow for substituted decision making? Or does it provide with the supported decision making system? Does it provide mechanism to ensure access to justice? Can persons with psychosocial disability... Oh, okay, I have only 3 minutes left. I haven't even gone into the... Okay, let me jump. You have to be flexible, right? Okay, after all of these specific rights, the good thing about this convention is that it has the monitoring mechanism. You have been sharing your story, you have been talking about advocacy, you have been talking about mobilizing your thoughts together. It's time to empower. It's time to take collective action. And it's time to bargain. Because when you have enough power as a collective movement, you can empower among yourselves, and you can bargain with the institutions, with the establishment, including medical establishment. And you can call for policy and legislative changes. This convention allows for international cooperation, so as you can call for assistance from international organizations. And through support like from TCI Asia, and perhaps from IDA, International Disability Alliance, and other umbrella organizations concerning your field, could extend their help to you. And you can exchange what you have with them. The monitoring system consists of national monitoring, and that is the focal point, national focal point. Many countries, persons with mental illness are not included in the disability law, which is unfortunate. In order to get the full benefits, you must be recognized as part of disability legislation. India has some problem because I serve as a rapporteur and they are trying to make changes to their Mental Health Act so as it will be comprehensively, it will be well integrated with the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. And the monitoring system has to be also done through independent monitoring mechanisms such as the Human Rights Commission. Malaysia has a Human Rights Commission. If you truly believe that disability rights is a human right, and people with mental health conditions can claim that their rights have been violated through social construction of their disability, then they are entitled to be protected and monitored. We do have international monitoring mechanism. The first one is the Conference of States Parties. Your government attend this Conference of States Parties every year. This conference takes care of all matters concerning the convention, implementation of the convention. It nominates persons to serve in the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, like myself. And so far, we had 2 individuals with psychosocial disabilities serving in our CRPD already. One from Hungary and the other from Kenya. They already finished their term. And we look forward to have a new member of the Committee with Psychosocial Disabilities. And who knows, perhaps someone might be from Malaysia, right? And, well, I don't have time to cover the process of report, but your country, your government has to present your country report covering all aspects of the implementation of the convention, the revision, the amendment, the promulgation of the law concerning the rights of all persons with disabilities, success and failure, and that's a government report. After ratification for 2 years, 2 years after ratification, your initial report has to be submitted. And that every 4 years, the follow-up report will be submitted. As the civil society organizations, or in the disability field, we put emphasis on DPOs, organizations of persons with disabilities. We are empowered and we are enabled to present our alternative report or parallel report. The report that may not necessarily agree with the government. The report that reflects our views and opinions. The report that cite success and failures and give recommendations to the government. And this parallel report will be submitted to Geneva. The committee looked at both government report and parallel report. And as civil society organizations, you are invited to give briefing to the committee without any interference from your government. And the committee conduct interactive dialogue, constructive dialogue with your government, and you can witness, you can be there, you can be present, but during the interactive constructive dialogue, you cannot talk, you observe. And finally, the government presents, the committee present your government with concluding observations, with recommendations, concerns. And next 4 years, your government return back to the committee and report to the committee. Now I want to talk about another instrument after the convention. Please give me 2 more minutes. And this is very important. Besides the main text of the convention, which your government ratified, in order to empower persons with disabilities, and I mean all kinds of disabilities, socially constructed, period. In order to empower persons with disabilities to convey their individual or groups of individual communication to the committee upon their rights being violated, they might be discriminated, they might be rejected from participating in all walks of life, and they have exhausted all levels of justice within the country and they could never receive justice, they file complaint to the committee. And this could only be done if the country ratified the optional protocol, please, optional protocol to the convention. And so far, Thailand is the only country in ASEAN which ratified the optional protocol. Is Malaysia interested in ratifying the optional protocol? I cannot speak for your government, but I invite you to speak for yourself and your colleagues. I invite you to join the collective force among yourselves. I invite you to extend your hands and share your stories. Heal among yourselves. Empower each other. Take collective action. Bargain and submit your parallel report and eventually even your communication to the committee, so as you can make sure that your rights will be fully recognized, respected, promoted, and protected, so that you can fully enjoy effectively and equally all human rights and fundamental freedoms without any discrimination. My personal slogan before ending, and I keep this wholeheartedly to my life, is that I've given up on giving up. And I invite all of you to please give up on giving up. More power to you. Thank you very much. So,
thank you so much, Mr. Buntan. That was, wow. I mean, really great advice on enabling us to become a collective and making a difference in our country, not just our country, and inshallah in the world, you know. So we'll come up to a Q&A now, Mr. Buntan. And I'll come sit next to you. There's a couple of chairs here. To the front a little bit. Okay, and all right, right there. And yeah, we'll ask some questions which the crowd has put into our Slido. And the first question would be, what are the things that the youth can do since we don't have the finance to help people with disabilities in rural areas?
well, first of all, you need to get together and form an organization. I think once you get yourself together, you can mobilize your thoughts. Once you can mobilize your thoughts, you can mobilize resources. And once you can mobilize your resources, you can bargain that the government make it their policy to extend their assistance to persons with disabilities everywhere in your country, including rural area. So I would encourage you to get together, form your organization, mobilize resources among yourselves, and get yourself empowered collectively, and then you start talking to the government. Every organization, disability movement, started more or less as a self-help organization, and then they can collect money, and then they ask for public support, and eventually the government is obliged to support them. So it's a process.
Yeah, and I guess it would be a really long process indeed as well. Hopefully with the collectiveness, it will not be too long of a process. And our next question would be, recent visit of Spec Rapporteur on poverty here helped highlight issues and to hold Malaysians accountable. Would it help for SR, for CRPD to visit Malaysia officially?
someone whispered to me that they would like me to make an informal visit to CSO meetings. They are starting to think about writing their parallel report. So that's probably in my personal capacity. But as a CRPD, as the committee, whole committee, again, it's a long step. Once you are party to the optional protocol, and once there's an evidence that there's a grave human rights violation against persons with disabilities and reported to the committee can conduct investigation upon the inquiry. So that is a different approach from individual communication. So this is two mechanisms that we can do. However, within the UN system, we also have a special rapporteur on the rights of persons with disabilities. The current one, Ms. Catalina Mendes from Costa Rica, and she's been visiting different places to promote the CRPD, to promote the rights of persons with disabilities, of course, including those with psychosocial disabilities. And I think she's going to complete her term soon. I don't know whether she's still free to visit Malaysia, but she report issues of her visiting countries and also make recommendations everywhere she visits. So that's quite a long story. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. The more information, the better. Thank you so much, Mr. Buntan, for your answers to these questions, and thank you so much for such a lovely talk and such good advice. And we'd like to invite Puan Anita up on stage, as well as Jill Mill, to come up to receive a token of appreciation. So,
thank you. Again, more power to all of you.